Hello, my name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 44 years old, and the phone call that shattered my family's illusion began with my mother's suffocating sob. Natalie, thank God. It's horrible, just horrible. My pen froze midair. Mark's been arrested. The feds came into their house. They dragged him away like a criminal. My stomach dropped. Mark Fletcher, my sister Chloe's husband, their golden boy. The man who once mocked my dusty government job, now accused of fraud and money laundering. Mom's voice rose to a shriek. You have to come home immediately. She wasn't asking. She was commanding. My eyes fell to the case file already open on my desk. Black letters across the cover. United States of America versus Mark Fletcher. Mini hook. And that's when the silence in me began to burn. For 15 years, my family told a story about me. Not the truth, just the version that made them comfortable. Natalie, the dropout. Natalie, the quiet one who failed. Natalie, who buried herself in some dusty government archive. It was easier for them to laugh than to listen. Easier to paint me as aimless than to admit I'd chosen a life that didn't orbit around their mansions and jewelry. Chloe became the golden child, the one they adored. She married Mark with his inherited real estate empire. Charity luncheons, designer handbags, luxury vacations. To them, her world sparkled. Mine was invisible, gray. I was their cautionary tale served with wine at dinner. I remember a Christmas 5 years ago. Mark, drunk, clapped my shoulder and smirked. So, Natalie, how's our little government bureau doing? Still stamping alien files? The family burst out laughing. Chloe giggled behind her napkin. Mom smiled indulgently, then added her own sting. Be nice, Mark. Natalie's work is important in its own way. Her voice was syrupy sweet, dripping with condescension. Mark winked. Someone has to alphabetize democracy. I'd smiled tightly then, cheeks burning. I said nothing. I swallowed the humiliation, as I always did. I told myself one day reality would speak louder than my defense. And maybe that day had arrived. Because now Mom's call wasn't about pride or love. It wasn't even about truth. It was about image. Our neighbors, our friends, they'll see this on the news. You need to be here. We must present a united front. United front. That was her demand. Not for justice. Not for answers. For appearances. To shield Chloe's face behind pearls and sunglasses while the world whispered. They wanted me back in Connecticut. Not as a daughter, but as a prop. Another piece of window dressing. To prove the family stood strong. They had no idea what kind of strength I carried with me. No idea at all. Mini hook. And when they finally asked me for loyalty, they never imagined what kind of loyalty I'd deliver. 2 days later, I met them in a Hartford cafe. The air smelled of burnt espresso and cold sugar. Mom twisted her pearls like rosary beads. Chloe hid her swollen eyes behind absurdly large sunglasses. They say it's a witch hunt, Mom declared, voice sharp. Some prosecutor building her career by destroying good men. Chloe sniffled, stirring lattes she would never drink. Mark is a good man. He trusted the wrong people. I sipped my black coffee, bitter and scalding. It tasted like irony. Mom's gaze cut into me. You're so calm, Natalie. Doesn't this affect you at all? I let silence hang. I'm just listening, I said. They've got nothing solid, Chloe insisted, slamming her cup. They're trying to intimidate him, force a confession. This woman, the prosecutor, his lawyer says she's a bulldog. Heartless, ruthless. Doesn't she think about the children? Her voice cracked. I thought of children, yes. Not hers. Others. Elderly couples who lost savings. Families robbed of homes. College funds drained into sports cars and private jets. That was Mark's empire. But I only said, I'm sure she's just doing her job. Mom scoffed so hard her pearls rattled. A job? Ha! That's like calling a gravedigger a gardener. Vultures. And you, Natalie, with your little government position, you'd know. Soulless cogs. That's all you bureaucrats are. The sting was familiar, but sharper now. Her disdain for my dusty archive life, her worship of Chloe's glitter. I let it pass, watching sugar crystals melt into foam. Every insult was kindling. They had no idea what fire they were feeding. A memory rose. Christmas laughter echoing as Mark jeered about me stamping top secret on alien files. Their giggles. My humiliation. I had swallowed it then. I wasn't swallowing. Today, we should go, Mom announced, rising. Her blazer snapped into place like armor. We must support Mark. She turned, already shepherding Chloe out. Then paused. Natalie, are you coming? Yes, I said, standing. I'm coming. They walked ahead. Chloe cocooned in Mom's arm, shielded from imaginary stares. I followed behind, my anger cooling into steel resolve. They thought I'd come to hold their hands. They had no idea I'd come to hold the gavel. Mini hook. And when the courtroom doors opened, they finally learned what silence had been hiding. The federal courthouse loomed, solemn under oak and marble. High ceilings, the great seal above the judge's bench. Not a sanctuary, but a reckoning. Mom and Chloe slid into the gallery's first row, their eyes fixed on the door where Mark would appear. They never glanced at me. They never needed to. I didn't join them. I walked past the low gate, set my briefcase at the prosecution's table, and smoothed the lapel of my navy blazer. Tom, a junior prosecutor, nodded. Morning, Natalie. Ready? More than, I said. I didn't look back, but I could feel their stares drilling into me. Confusion, irritation. Natalie's making a scene again. Mark's lawyer, Daniels, froze when he spotted me. Miss Brooks, he stammered. Unexpected. Not really, I replied. We're all here to work. He paled, retreating. Then the shuffle of chains. Mark entered in an orange jumpsuit, swagger gone. His gaze found Chloe, trembling. Then me. His lips shaped my name, Natalie, like a curse. Panic flickered. What was I doing there? Mom's hiss carried through the gallery. What is she doing? Someone tell her to sit down. I stayed still, eyes forward. The tension tightened around us. All rise. Judge Henderson swept in, stern, piercing. We stood. My pulse slowed. This was my ground. The United States versus Mark Fletcher. Prosecution ready? Every humiliation I'd endured went silent. Only truth remained. I rose tall. State your name for the record, counsel. At last I turned. For the first time, I faced them, Mom, Chloe, Mark, their faces twisted. Confusion, horror, disbelief. I met the judge's eyes. My voice was clear. Natalie Brooks, Assistant United States Attorney for the government. Your Honor. The silence cracked like glass. Chloe gasped aloud. Mom inhaled sharply. Mark stared, ashen, ghost-struck. The man who mocked my dusty job sat in chains. Realizing the woman he dismissed now held his fate. Judge Henderson nodded briskly. Proceed, Miss Brooks. I opened the file, each page a weapon. Shell corporations, falsified reports, millions stolen. My voice was steady, ruthless, every word a nail. With each fact, Mark's empire shrank into dust. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Their world, built on money, lies, disdain, was crumbling, and I was the reckoning they never saw coming. Mini hook. When the gavel fell, it wasn't just Mark. On trial, it was every lie my family had lived. The hearing unfolded like a blade, every word precise. I laid out shell companies, falsified reports, offshore accounts, each fact a stone, stacking weight on Mark's coffin. Daniels, his lawyer, objected twice. Both were overruled. His confidence drained as fast as my evidence built. My own voice never faltered, not once. Behind me, Chloe sobbed into trembling hands. Mom twisted her pearls so hard they clicked. They stared, but I gave them nothing. Judge Henderson leaned forward at last. Bail denied. Mr. Fletcher is a flight risk. He remains in custody. Chloe wailed like a child, mascara streaking down. Mark sagged in his chair, color gone. His swagger had collapsed into hollow panic. The marshal led him away, chains clinking. I packed my files slowly, deliberately. Every page slipped into my briefcase like a nail, sealed tight. I let them watch me, silent. At the gate, they waited. Mom rigid, pale. Chloe clung to her, eyes red, face blotched. Their shock was almost louder than sobs. Natalie, Mom whispered, voice shredded thin. Why didn't you tell us? Not why prosecute, but why didn't we know who you were? They weren't horrified that Mark was guilty. They were horrified that I wasn't who they believed. The daughter they dismissed now towered above them. I stepped close, words steady but cutting. When would I have told you? At Christmas? When Mark joked about stamps and aliens? You built a box for me. The failed daughter. The aimless archivist. You laughed while I stayed silent. But I never fit in your box. Chloe flinched, eyes wet, lips trembling. You called that prosecutor heartless. Did you ever think about the families your husband destroyed for handbags? Her head bowed as if my words struck. Mom's pearls rattled. Her hands were trembling. For once, she looked small. I love my job, I told her evenly. I bring order to chaos men like Mark create. It's not dusty. It's not trivial. It's justice. Her eyes widened. I leaned closer, sharper. Shame shouldn't be that I sit at this table. It's that your son-in-law sits at the other. And you never once bothered to know your daughter. I walked past them, heels sharp on marble. Behind me, no protest, no excuses. Only silence. Absolute, devastating silence. Mini hook. And in that silence, I finally heard myself roar. The courtroom emptied, leaving only echoes on the marble. I walked out alone, my briefcase heavier with victory, lighter with truth. For once, the silence belonged to me. 6 months have passed. Mark remains behind bars, his empire dismantled, investors reclaiming scraps of what he stole. Chloe moved back in with Mom, her designer bags traded for unpaid bills and whispers. Mom sends polite holiday texts now, short, stripped, of judgment. Dad's rare calls contain only 4 words. Hope you're well, Natalie. The lectures have vanished. I don't crave their approval anymore. The power was never in their hands, it was in mine. I had spent years living in their shadows, measured by their wealth, mocked for my quiet work. But the day I rose in court and spoke my name into the record, I shattered that box. They built for me. They didn't just hear me. They finally saw me, and they couldn't look away. Sometimes I think of Mom's face at the gate. Fear replacing disdain, shame replacing pride. Not because of Mark's downfall, but because she realized she never knew her own daughter. And that was my real revenge. Not prison walls. Not chains. But forcing them to face the truth. They'd buried under diamonds and laughter for years. I still love my job. I still sift evidence, bring order to chaos, speak for the silenced. It's not glamorous, but it's justice. And justice, for me, will always outshine glitter. So if you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or shoved into a box that never fit, remember this. You don't need to scream to be heard. You only need to stand and let truth speak. Have you ever had a moment where the truth finally spoke louder than the lies? Wherever you're watching from, morning coffee or late night quiet, I'd like to hear your story in the comments. Give us a like and a hype if you believe. Strength isn't silence. It's knowing when to speak.